Okay, so then the next thing that we decided we were going to do is to slide somewhere in this ballpark, like somewhere like maybe right around like here. While the part of the guy is still visible, we can maybe start to slide the logo in, but I don't want to use a 3D logo, and I don't think that we need to use a logo that has effects on it. Because remember, the reason that we added like those shadow effects and stuff before was because there was a lot of background information that we were competing with. And so I think that there's going to be such starkness here that it would be awkward if we softened up the edges with drop shadows and glows and things. So I think I'd like to keep this logo nice and crisp. So in order to do that, while I have the playback head here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drag another instance of this logo in, and I'll drag it in on the bottom. It's fine, it doesn't matter. Not the bottom, it'll still be above the skydiving clip, but it'll be right here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this in a little bit so it's not so long, and I'm going to drag the beginning of this in. Actually, I'm just going to drag this over, and I'll have it snap. Holding down shift, I'll have it snap to the playback head, and I'm going to drag the end in again so that it matches up with the ending 10-second mark or whatever. It's close to 10 seconds, and let's try that. And so that's sliding in, but the problem is, of course, it's a white logo on a white background. So what we need to do is change the blend mode, and I'm going to this time change it to exclusion, because then that way it will be black. It'll be absolutely the opposite of what it is against a pure white background. Okay, so it just appears right there, and then it ends. But what we can do is give it some animation. So first of all, let's go to the end of the clip. I'm going to hold down shift and let it pop to the end like that. And we're going to twirl down logo, and let's rename this. Instead of logo PSD, let's rename it, and we'll call it logo, and we'll call it flat, and flat slash end. Okay, so that we know that that's the one at the end. And under transform, let's go ahead and turn on the position, because I think that's where I would like this thing to be. And the other thing that we can do then is go to the beginning of the clip right here, and we'll change the position. First of all, we have to add a keyframe, so let's click there to add that keyframe, and you can see over in our timeline that the keyframe currently that's active is blue, and it's the one that we want. And so what I want to do is I want to move this over by clicking and dragging the value so that it's all the way off the screen. And you can just keep moving it. Let's just try that. Let's see. Maybe I'll even move it some more so it slides in fast. And let's just see how that works. And I might even move this one at the end so that it actually has a chance. Let's scoot this in a little bit so that it has a chance to just sit there for a second while the clip ends. Okay, let's see how that looks. Let's hit the space bar, and that just slides in and stops. And I think what I'd like to do is it just sort of slides in and stops, and it doesn't have a lot of joy in its behavior, right? So one of the things that we can also do with this modification, is I can select this layer and go on up here to animation and go to keyframe assistant. Excuse me, I need to do one other thing real quick. Let's go back down to transformation. Let's select position, and we're going to select the keyframes like this, and we'll go to animation and keyframe assistant, and then we're going to choose, while both of those keyframes are selected, we're going to choose ease out. All right, we could also do easy ease, which would ease it in and ease it out. Let's try ease out though, and let's see how that looks. And you'll notice that these keyframes look a little bit different. Let's zoom that in a little bit more so you can see it better. These have these interesting looking shapes now attached to the actual keyframes. And if you wanted to see the nature, if I were to move over here, let's just snap. If you wanted to see the nature of how this looks in terms of like a curve, like a graph editor, you can click on this graph editor and it shows you exactly what it does. And I think I'm not sure that I want it to ease out. I don't know. We'll see. Let's see what it looks like whenever it plays back. All right, so let's hit the space bar, and then it just kind of here. Let's actually. I'm going to limit the amount of space that our workspace is taking up so that it's more efficient. The other thing that I think I'd like to do is it's awfully big. It seems really, really big. And I want that animation actually to happen faster. So I think I'm going to scoot this in so that it has to travel the same distance over a shorter amount of time. I like that speed a little bit better. Okay. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the scale for this entire for the entire clip, because I don't really like how large it is. I think if I slide it here to the end of the clip so I can see how big it is, I'm just going to adjust the scale of this thing. And right now, I don't know if you can see this, but I'm hovering over this and it's like a little link symbol, and when I hover it, it says constrained proportions. And you can option click and it sets all of the dimensions to the same value. I want to make sure that this stays linked so that the proportions are constrained. I don't want to lose the basic shape of this in the ratio. So I'm going to change it so that maybe it's a little bit smaller. I think that it'll actually work better. And notice that I didn't actually click on the stopwatch because I want it to be about 80%. Let's just type the value of 80%. I want it to be about 80% of itself throughout the entire animation. I don't want it to get bigger or smaller as it's moving. So let's just see how that looks. And I think I'm okay with that, right? And you could change the nature of your keyframes if you wanted. Also, you know, you could go over here to animation, and you could do an ease in on top of that, and let's just see how that looks. And then it sort of slows right down at the end. And I think that I like the way that that looks, the way that that behavior is. And so I'm going to leave it like that, and we're going to save this, and let's just change the work area so that it's the entire thing, and we'll take one more shot at looking at this. And we're going to make sure that the workspace snaps to the very end. And let's see how this whole thing looks. Let's save it. And then it should explode, the guy flying through the air. And I think I'm pretty happy with that. And I might actually even want the logo to start sliding in a little bit sooner. So let's see if I can make that happen. We're gonna move this keyframe. Yeah, I like it sliding in just a little bit sooner, I believe. Yeah, we're gonna scoot this in even more. And we can make it longer so it goes all the way to 10 seconds. And then if you wanted to leave it, it could just stay at the end. You could also have it fade out. But I think I like the idea that it just stays put right at the end. Okay, and then if you wanted to render a copy of this out without audio, because we're going to add audio to it, it makes it a little bit more dynamic. But if you wanted to render a copy without audio, then what you need to do is first make sure that you're going to have it rendering out excuse me, in full resolution. If you accidentally have this set to half or third or quarter or something, then it will actually render it out at half the resolution or a third the resolution or whatever. Sometimes though that's not a bad idea if you just want a smaller version, see how it looks. The other thing that you can do is if you just want to render a section of it, like if you've got something that's longer than this, it would take longer to render, then you could just change the amount of workspace by dragging these bars in and just render, it'll only render what's in the workspace. So that's a good thing to know as well. But anyway, what we're going to do is we are going to make sure this is set to full, and it is. And then you want to go up to composition and excuse me, add to render queue. And then what it does is it changes, well, it doesn't change, but it adds a new tab over here to this bottom panel, and it opens the render queue tab, and it shows me what's in render queue. And it says that the Spire composition, the Spire 1080 by 1080 composition, is currently queued, and it says what is the status. It's queued. Sitting in the render queue, we're going to choose best settings. We're going to leave that alone. Lossless is fine. And we're going to output, and we have to choose what we're going to output and where. So you click here, and we're going to choose where it's going to go. And so I've chosen the After Effects demo starter files folder that I've been working on. Also, just so you'll notice, we have Adobe After Effects autosave folder in there, which it created automatically for us. So anytime you're working within your project folder, it's going to create an Adobe After Effects autosave folder in case something crashes on you. You don't lose everything, hopefully. If you haven't been saving, you can go back to a last autosave point. Anyway, but what we're going to do is I like to choose to save in a subfolder. You can have it saved like that, or if you just want to create your own subfolder, you could do that as well. So like I could create a new folder in here that's called renders, right? And I like to do that. And so I'll create a folder within my project folder called renders so that I know that these are not assets that were part of my movie, but they're actually renders that I made later. And then right now it's only letting me export out to QuickTime MOV format on my computer. So I'll just go ahead and click on save. All right, and so that's going to be the name. I could have changed it. In fact, what I could do is I could change it to no audio or something like that. All right, and then when I'm ready to go, I'll just click on render. And it will render everything out. And this is pretty quick because it's a very short clip, and it's done. And if I want to go over and take a peek at that, you'll see that I've got this renders folder. I can look inside of here, and it's going to require that I convert it if I try to open it in QuickTime, but let's just take a look really quick. And here we go. Let's take a peek and see how it looks. And not bad. Okay, so I'm going to close this render queue, and we're back to our composition timeline, and we'll save this and move on to the next video where I show you how to include audio.